ashes, wondering why no one's inviting him home. Let's start with the latest scandal. While Prince William was out in Brazil doing something genuinely impressive, delivering speeches about climate action and indigenous rights for his Earthshot Prize, Harry was off in Canada. On the exact same week. Now, in theory, that shouldn't be a big deal. He's attending remembrance events for veterans, totally fine, totally respectable. But the timing? The optics? Oh, it's so Harry. Royal insiders are calling it an ambush, a deliberate attempt to pull focus from William's big international moment. Dan Wootton even went so far as to say he's doing a 24-hour blackout on Harry's trip, refusing to show the photos because, in his words, "I'm not going to play into his hands." That's how cynical this whole thing looks. It's not about duty or service anymore, it's about revenge PR. Harry seems obsessed with overshadowing his brother, and it's getting embarrassing. He's acting like a jealous sibling rather than a global humanitarian. And while Harry's trying to outshine William, Hollywood has officially turned the lights off. Page 6, yes, that Page 6, the Gossip Bible of New York, ran a brutal exposé this week asking, is the Hollywood show over for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? According to their sources, people are sick of them. The act has gone stale. There's no appetite left for Harry and Meghan. And they've worn through any goodwill they had. It's the kind of takedown you can't spin. Executives are describing Harry as hopeless in professional settings. One even claimed he showed up late to a Netflix meeting and then asked a senior executive, not an intern, not an assistant, a top exec, for a cup of hot chocolate. Apparently that's his signature drink. Staff had to scramble to find it for him, just like at Spotify, where the same thing happened. And Meghan? Insiders say she's dismissive, convinced she's smarter than everyone, and totally in control of the couple's life and image. So while Harry's trying to rebuild his reputation, his wife's running the PR machine, and the results are disastrous. Hollywood's done. The contracts are drying up. The powerful people who once called them visionaries now roll their eyes when their names come up in meetings.
Former employees share horror stories, midnight meltdowns, she'd call at 1 a.m., demanding rewrites, red carpet rage. She yelled that bad lighting made her look like a politician, not a princess, and a Paris PR disaster. She ignored warnings not to film near the Diana crash site, then blamed the team when backlash hit. Developing today, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle rejected by the A-list as a shocking new offer emerges for her to return to being a Soho House girl. And there is very much something in Meghan Markle's development which I think is encapsulated by regression. Everything is a regression. She had so many opportunities. And of course, in recent weeks, that regression has involved Marcus Anderson, the Soho House guy who first introduced Harry and Meghan, being involved in everything to do with her relaunch, to be involved in Meghan Markle 3.0. And that's where the Soho House link comes in. And let me just take you through this reporting from Shooter Scoop, who writes, she's back where it all began. Shooter Scoop can reveal that Meghan Markle has been offered a cushy new position as global ambassador for Soho House, the ultra-exclusive members club, where she famously had her first date with Prince Harry. It's a full circle moment, an insider dishes. Soho House was her sanctuary long before royalty. Now she's their secret weapon to stay relevant. Once synonymous with A-list chic, Soho House has lately battled backlash and dwindling buzz. Insiders say Meghan's been tapped to modernise the magic and rebrand the club's image for a new generation. While details remain hush-hush, sources say the Duchess's role would include hosting empowerment salons and social impact soirees from Malibu to Mayfair. She's not just shaking cocktails, a London PR insider laughs. She's shaking up the brand. Still, not everyone's buying the spin. One longtime member scoffs, ambassador sounds glamorous. But what does that really mean? It could just be a title and a tab. But love or loathe her, Meghan's name still pulls focus. If anyone can make elitism sound inclusive again, says one royal watcher, it's Meghan Markle. And that's the ultimate brand reboot. Now, of course, this offer comes after Meghan Markle quite specifically leaked to her favourite members of the press that she had used Soho House in New York to meet up with A-list friends Ed Sheeran and Serena Williams during her most recent trip to the Big Apple. So Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network with me now, I just think this is awful for all involved. I think it's awful and desperate for Soho House. But I think it's far more awful for Meghan Markle because, of course, this is the type of thing that she never thought that she was even going to have to countenance. Brittany, the idea that she would ever have to sort of go cap and hand back to Soho House was mortifying. But back in the day, Brittany, back in her early days, she was totally reliant on Soho House to pay for her travel, to pay for her accommodation. And it's so cringe that it's like she almost feels she might need that again.
It's so strange. And Dan, there is nothing, I think, a bigger fall from grace really, or fall from, let's say, the most exclusive and elite to the most mundane. And that is going from the balcony of Buckingham Palace to shilling as a global ambassador for Soho House. I mean, that is a taking of extreme measures. But Meghan has always had this very, very strange fascination with Soho House, very much this weird obsession with it. And I think she thinks it gives her some sort of status. It really doesn't. I don't think anybody beyond a handful of people care about Soho House and its exclusivity at all. I mean, technically, there is a members process, but really anybody can apply if they have the money. So this is not something that's really all that exclusive. And at the same time, as well, you have this idea from Soho House that Meghan is somehow going to bring in a younger generation. Meghan Markle does not appeal to the younger generation. She tends to appeal to people who are like her age. So older millennials and Gen X, those sorts of people. Those are her crowd. And she also listens to like old-timey music and these sorts of things. And so I just don't think she has even sort of the young spin to really even bring people in. That's maybe a Hailey Bieber or Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, somebody like that. Meghan Markle does not hit those crowds very well. And I just don't think she would be really any help to the Soho House at all, because we all know it's not like marrying into the royal family. So there, like, she has a bit of a cachet as a pseudo royal, but at the same time, not really. But of course, Meghan Markle always willing to grift for a paycheck, so that is what she will do.
Now, the part that had ex-staffers clutching their NDAs. Rob Shooter reported a fresh wave of insider leaks from former employees, and it reads like a PR horror anthology. 10 PR pros in 5 years. Gone. The latest casualty? Emily Robinson, Meghan's communications director, who reportedly quit after non-stop micromanagement. Staffers described Meghan as impossible, needing to approve every comma, every headline. One said, "Push back and you're gone." Then came the details. Midnight meltdown calls at 1 a.m. demanding rewrites. Red carpet rage fits about bad lighting that made her look like a politician, not a princess. And a Paris PR disaster where she ignored warnings not to film near the site of Princess Diana's crash, then blamed her team when backlash hit. Harry, they say, tries to play peacemaker, but no one can meet her expectations. One insider summed it up: it's not a PR problem. It's a Meghan problem. Britney's take? Hollywood will forgive a lot. Bad behavior, diva antics. But not if you're rude and lack talent. Meghan's biggest enemy isn't bad press, it's herself. Her control freak tendencies reportedly make it impossible for creative teams to function.
Yeah, I find this one mortifying for her, actually, because this is the whole thing, Brittany. It's like, wow, you had this opportunity. You had this opportunity to be so elevated, to change the world, but you're just right back as a basic bitch influencer. I mean, I think of her time with Millie McIntosh, right? Who is, not being horrible, but, you know, a basic bitch, run-of-the-mill, made in Chelsea influencer who she used to be great mates with and turned up at Soho House, farmhouse. And that's where Meghan then decided to, you know, do her, I think it was her bridal shower and her hen party. But there's something so sad about this. It's like Soho House is just so meaningless. It is
Mm.
so yesterday, but it's not even about that. It's like you could be doing so much with your life, but this is where you've ended
Mm-hmm.
up. There is almost something, though, sort of that's running parallel between their two brands as
Mm-hmm.
well, though, Brittany. It's like these are brands past their peak, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
aging, and just not cool anymore, and probably impossible to ever be seen as cool again.
That's why every project from archetypes to Meet Me at the Lake has either stalled or fizzled. She can't let professionals do their jobs, Brittany said. Everything becomes a mess because she insists on running it all, and she's not a creative. The takeaway: Meghan's brand chaos isn't about bad luck or sexism or royal conspiracies. It's about bad management and the inability to evolve. She's still running her image like an Instagram influencer, not a media mogul. The Meghan Markle story is a fascinating case study in arrested development. 10 years ago, her playbook worked: the carefully curated lifestyle brand, the empowerment buzzwords, the soft-focus feminism. But the internet's changed. Influencer culture is on the decline. Audiences can spot play acting, those perfectly staged pumpkin-picking photos or candid latte shots, from a mile away. As Brittany said, people want authenticity now. Meghan's entire persona feels like performance. Even Soho House, the setting of her big relaunch, represents a bygone era, that glossy mid-2010s influencer scene of curated minimalism, avocado toast, and faux bohemian luxury. Both brands, Meghan's and Soho House's, peaked around the same time. Now, both feel dated. They are fading together, Dan quipped. Once a Soho House basic, always a Soho House basic. The irony is almost poetic. Meghan once used Soho House as her stepping stone to royalty. Now, post-royalty, she's crawling back to the same network for validation, only the culture's moved on without her. The episode didn't stop at Meghan. Wotton's show veered into other royal drama too, especially the latest York family meltdown. Andrew and Fergie's titles are reportedly being stripped, and their daughters Beatrice and Eugenie were blindsided. Fergie allegedly wailed when told she'd lose her Duchess title, while Eugenie skipped the crisis meeting entirely. Royal insiders suggest the sisters should give up their own titles to distance themselves from the scandals, but as Brittany pointed out, they were born with them. That's their identity. It's another instance of generational fallout, children forced to carry the shame of their parents' mistakes. Meanwhile, over in Spencerland, Diana's brother Charles Spencer resurfaced in an interview about his famous 1997 eulogy. He described how he reluctantly wrote it, claiming his family, not the royals, chose him to speak. But, as Wotton noted, he conveniently leaves out that Diana was estranged from him before her death, having begged him for a home on the Althorpe estate and been refused. It's all very on-brand for the Spencer family, revisionist nostalgia wrapped in moral superiority. Brittany made the comparison explicit: he's living off his sister's memory, just like his nephew. At least William has moved on. He honors her without exploiting her.
Yes, and you would have to sort of revamp, I would guess, Soho House's branding overall to maybe make it more appealing to the younger generations. But people are moving in different directions at this point. Even influencing overall is sort of seeing a decline because people are sort of recognizing and becoming aware that most of this stuff, like Harry and Meghan's pumpkin picking, is just fake. It's just there for the cameras, and that's it. It's just play acting so that you can get content. And I think people are wanting more out of the people who they follow. They want something more interesting. And Meghan Markle is just not that person. At her heart of hearts, Meghan Markle is shallow, vain, and vapid. That is always who she's been. Since marrying into the royal family, I think she's tried to portray herself as a woman of depth, but time has revealed who Meghan Markle truly is. And she was always that shallow, vain, and vapid person that was on Suits, that did the TIG, also on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, but now back to doing influencing because that's her level. But also, she has not evolved in the last 10 years at all and is trying the same basic tactics that worked maybe 10 years ago, but are not working now, which is why her growth is completely and utterly stagnant at this point. She needs a rebrand herself. But again, Meghan Markle to herself is sort of perfect. So she doesn't need the rebrand in her mind. But I just can't see her succeeding. And Soho House, maybe they will, but they need probably an overhaul. And I don't know enough and I don't care enough to know what they need to do. But they're both fading brands. And I think they definitely had that in common with each other.
Once a Soho House basic bitch, always a Soho House basic bitch. But look, this reporting from News Nation won't please Meghan at all either. It's from their very well-connected royal insider Paula Frolic, who reports Meghan and Prince Harry snubbed by A-listers. This is what she reports, Brittany. Meghan and her hubby, Prince Harry, may aspire to be Hollywood royalty, but the A-list isn't interested. While the two may find themselves at events with actual elite members of the red carpet crowd, no one wants their photos taken for posterity with the erstwhile nobles. A-listers snub Meghan, Prince Harry. At last week's Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit, Meghan gave a garbled speech in which she talked about financial independence, the evils of social media, and despite neither her nor Harry seemingly working very hard, the importance of work-life balance. Also at the summit was former Vice President Kamala Harris, but you won't find any photos of the two online. Kamala pulled a Gwyneth. One insider said when Meghan flew to the G9 Ventures Business Summit in the summer of 2024, she was snapped with and her bestie Misha Nonu and makeup maven Bobby Brown, but not Gwyneth Paltrow, Reese Witherspoon, and Diane Sawyer, who were also at the event. At the time, a source told me A-listers know that if they are in a picture with Meghan, it is a tacit approval of her that she can use to promote herself, my insider told me. Meghan can show up at events where they are at, move into their neighborhood, but they are not friends. This year, Paltrow claimed to people she and Meghan have a text friendship in an attempt to quell feud rumors, but still, no pies have been exchanged in person. As I reported, elite Hollywood players don't want to be seen taking Harry or the Duchess of Sussex's side in the family fracas, and ultimate A-listers Taylor Swift shook off the Duchess of Sussex several times. As for Harris, perhaps she just didn't want to be photographed with someone whose approval ratings are even lower than hers. And that's saying something. But look, Brittany, to me, what this is much more about is schedules. And hear me out on this, because I do not believe it was a coincidence that Kamala Harris was scheduled on a different day than Meghan at the Fortune Summit, because you know how these things work. And you know that absolutely the advisors to Kamala, who, by the way, I think are delusional anyway, but genuinely believe that she is going to be the next Democratic nominee to run for president, of course they don't want her pictured with Meghan Markle, and they don't even want her on stage at the same time. And so there is a lot of choreography that goes into these conversations behind the scenes, but it's where the people working for the other celebrities say to Fortune, okay, who else is on? Okay, you've got Meghan Markle. That's not great. Okay, we're not going to put her on the cover of the event. Did you see that? She wasn't even featured on that main front page. What time is Meghan on? Okay, make sure I'm on either hours later or the next day. Definitely that they are conversations that go on regularly behind the scenes, because that's the job of these handlers. I mean, it's a horrible world, but that is the job of these celebrity and political handlers, to make sure that they are not toxified by a brand like the Markle brand.
Yes, and you have to remember as well, Dan, that right now Hollywood itself is failing pretty miserably.
Yeah.
The top movie at the box office this weekend was an anime film. And so the big Paramount film that they were hoping would do fairly well was second or third, I think, actually third. And so you have this situation where Hollywood itself is starting to really, really tank, and there is no such thing as a movie star anymore. And all these factors together means that you already have a brand itself as an entertainer that's sort of fading from the spotlight of Americans. And so the last thing you want to do is hang out with somebody who's even more toxic and terrible than that. And that is Meghan Markle, she does nothing for your brand. All she brings is toxicity. When you associate with her, all the news people want to do is ask you about her. So if you're a celebrity and you're just trying to navigate this failing industry that is Hollywood, the last person you want to associate with is Meghan Markle. Yes, maybe your name gets in the papers for a hot second, but at the same time, it just doesn't seem to go very, very well. So as this industry that Harry and Meghan have decided to jump onto is shifting, you can just feel the A-listers themselves or the people whose star is fading definitely shifting away from Harry and Meghan overall. They don't add anything. Meghan especially adds nothing. And she doesn't have a talent. She hasn't really had a success yet. And so there's just no real point in associating with her. That's why she couldn't get any big guests on her show. Nobody wants to be part of the Meghan Markle bandwagon.
And especially given, Brittany, the repercussions in terms of her bullying go on because of the latest departures from her staff. I want to take you to some reporting from Rob Shooter, who says that she has now been branded the boss from hell. And he writes 10 PR pros in 5 years and counting. Meghan Markle's latest communications director, Emily Robinson, has become the newest casualty in the Sussex spin cycle. She's impossible, says one ex-staffer. Every headline, every comma, Meghan has to approve it. Push back and you're gone. Former employees share horror stories. Midnight meltdowns, she'd call at 1 a.m., demanding rewrites. Red carpet rage. She yelled that bad lighting made her look like a politician, not a princess. And a Paris PR disaster. She ignored warnings not to film near the Diana crash site, then blamed the team when backlash hit. Sources say Harry tries to play peacemaker, but no one can keep up with her expectations. One insider put it bluntly, it's not a PR problem, it's a Meghan problem. And look, Brittany, I know we're spoken overall about what a boss from hell she is, but it's just so interesting hearing those specific details from the former staff members, isn't it? Calling at 1 a.m., demanding a rewrite, yelling that the bad lighting made her look like a politician, not a princess. I mean, and then blaming the staff for what happened with Princess Diana when she never listens to very good instruction. And I think it's sometimes that colour that I find most fascinating.
If you zoom out, Meghan's narrative is less about royalty and more about modern celebrity burnout. She's the textbook example of what happens when a personal brand outpaces authenticity, when the PR machine becomes the identity. Her attempts at reinvention, royal, activist, producer, podcaster, now Soho House ambassador, all circle back to the same pattern: an obsession with image management, a refusal to delegate, and a need for control that suffocates creativity. The constant rebranding feels less like ambition and more like desperation. The deeper irony? Meghan wanted to escape royal constraints, but Hollywood has proved even more brutal. The palace may have dictated her wardrobe and schedule, but LA dictates something far harsher: relevance. And in a town that chews through trends weekly, her brand of curated sincerity feels prehistoric. Even her husband's attempts at peacemaking, the eternal good cop act, can't offset the perception that she's impossible to work with. The 1 a.m. meltdown image sticks. It fits too neatly into the existing narrative: the Duchess who burned bridges in Buckingham Palace now doing the same in Beverly Hills boardrooms. That's the million-dollar question, or, given Netflix's budget cuts, maybe the $500,000 one. Meghan's future hinges on whether she can finally let go of the control, the perfectionism, and the outdated influencer aesthetic. To survive in a post-authenticity world, she needs to show vulnerability, not curated tease on a podcast, but genuine reflection. Right now, though, she's stuck between two fading brands, Harrods and Soho Houses. Both built on exclusivity, both scrambling for relevance, both pretending they are more in demand than they are. It's almost poetic that they've found each other again. Dan Wootton's final jab summed it up neatly: she had the chance to change the world, now she's changing cocktails. If you strip away the schadenfreude and the gossip, Meghan's saga is ultimately about the tension between image and identity. Once upon a time, she mastered the art of self-creation, from Suits actress to royal icon to California humanitarian. But reinvention only works when it's authentic. When every move feels strategic, audiences disengage. Britney's last words on the segment nailed it. At her core, Meghan Markle hasn't evolved. She's still chasing validation, still curating, still managing perception.
It is. And Megan could have had, I think, a smashing success potentially in Hollywood, but she needed to allow her PR team, who are trained professionals in the area of public relations, manage her image. But she's such a control freak, she can't let them do it. And even in Hollywood, they will forgive a lot of things, but if you're rude and you lack a lot of talent, Hollywood just tends to not be interested because what they want are people who are easy to work with. And we've heard time and time again, endlessly, that Meghan Markle is not an easy person to work with and definitely not for. And so when it comes to her future within the industry she's trying to get into, these type of stories turn a lot of people off, potential investors, potential like screenwriters and these sorts of things. I mean, Hollywood is gearing up towards another, I think, writer's strike, and Harry and Meghan seemingly have no script for Meet Me at the Lake, despite 3 or 4 years at this point of having the rights to it. And I think part of that problem is that Meghan is such a control freak; she can't allow people to work well. That's why everything they begin with and they start off with ends up being just terrible because Meghan's not a creative, Harry's not a creative, and they can't allow the professionals to take over. So I think this whole, again, continuing story of Meghan Markle and allegedly bullying and being terrible to staff members, it's a horrible reputation to have, and it definitely turns people off within the industry. She so wants validation from.
Brittany, this Prince Andrew story and the growing crisis engulfing the British royal family has obviously taken a massive toll on his daughters, the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and much more criticism of these two than there has been previously. The Daily Mail had a fascinating insight into the family summit with Andrew, his ex-wife Fergie, and his two daughters. And it's headlined how Fergie wailed and melted down at title loss. Beatrice and Eugenie were blindsided, and now daughters' assets face ethics check to avoid more scandal. Let me just take you through some of the specific reporting, Brittany. Barbara Davies writes, as the scandal-ridden House of York continues to crumble, an ever-dutiful Princess Beatrice went to see her beleaguered parents. By all account, the family summit, which took place at Royal Lodge in Windsor on Monday, was a highly fraught affair. Prince Andrew says a royal insider hadn't consulted or briefed either Beatrice or Eugenie before being bounced into agreeing a statement last week renouncing the titles given to him by his mother, the late Queen. Amid chaotic scenes in the erstwhile York household, his distraught ex-wife Sarah Ferguson had apparently gone into a meltdown when Andrew revealed she would be losing the Duchess title, which for the past 39 years had been such a cash cow for her, and was wailing that he shouldn't do it. Eugenie, meanwhile, who like her sister was blindsided by the bombshell statement, did not even attend the crisis meeting at her parents' lavish home. As the Royal Insider puts it, the Royal Lodge summit wasn't a happy occasion, and the family, once a strong unit, is fractured. She was on the phone, this is Eugenie, saying she couldn't bring herself to look at the Sunday papers. She looked absolutely devastated. And what's interesting is Ingrid Stewart is now, and she's, the editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, Royal Insider, going one step further, saying that the girls should give up their titles, adding that would give them freedom from their parents, stop them being tarred with the same brush, and be a clear sign that they want to make their own way in the world. I think people would hugely respect them for it, and I think ultimately they would be happier. But Barbara Davies writes, such a move, of course, would fly in the face of everything these two wealthy and hugely privileged young women were brought up to expect from their royal lives. So, Brittany, Beatrice and Eugenie, where do you stand?
I mean, they're in such a tough place, Stan, because I do admire them wanting to stick by their parents. I think that's an honorable thing to do, regardless of the circumstances. Obviously, those are very, very much obviously hugely impactful as well. Potentially Andrew's criminality, potentially allegedly. But I do admire them for trying to stick together, trying to stick within the family. And so they sort of have, let's say, a lose-lose scenario here where yes, they could give up their titles. I mean, I think there would be some respect for it, but at the same time, they were born with those titles. And so I understand how that is a key part of their identity as well. And I don't think it's necessarily bad for them to keep it. So I just it's really hard for them because I just don't even know which route to go in because they don't want to give up contact with their parents and nor that should they. They have obviously children themselves who they want to have a relationship with their grandparents, but I think the true fault here lies of course with Andrew and Sarah. They have made some deplorable decisions over the years. It's sort of amazing their daughters have turned out as well as they have, really, all things considered. And their daughters have probably been picking up their messes for a really, really long time. And they were born princesses. So I don't know. It's just so incredibly hard. But I would say if some of this stuff had been dealt with even decades earlier, nobody would be in this mess. And so I don't feel like the sins of the parents should impact the daughters, but this is such a tough one. I really don't have, let's say, a great answer for that.
And Brittany, Charles Spencer, Princess Diana's brother, revealing new information about the eulogy at her funeral, which stopped the world. Now, oh, look, I've got a whole load of feelings on Mr. Spencer. Not a nice dude, not a nice dude in a whole load of ways, but it's impossible to deny that his eulogy is one of the most famous in history, if not the most famous eulogy actually ever delivered. And I did find the insight into how he ended up being the one to deliver it very fascinating, because he reveals it was decision made by the Spencer family, not the royal family. Watch this.
Tribute to your sister. It must have been, I mean, how did you write that? I mean, and did you just read what you'd written? And
I wrote something very different. I flew back, I was living in South Africa. I flew back from Cape Town overnight. Very, very sweet stewardess helping me because I was in bits. And I'm sure everyone listening to this has had to deal with very profoundly emotional moments. I like to keep busy. And I had, in those days, I had a big, thick address book. And I thought, I want to find someone who's going to make the speech for her. And I got to Z and I hadn't found anyone. Got off the plane in Heathrow, called my mother. I said, I can't think who's going to give the eulogy. And I got an awful feeling it's going to have to be me. And she said, well, it is going to be you. Your sisters and I have decided it. And on the Tuesday night, I jotted a few things down. Very traditional eulogy. Almost, she was very good at this as a child and all that. And then I thought, well, this is ridiculous. That's not who she was. And then overnight, I must have been chuntering away, and I realized that my job actually wasn't to do that, but it was almost to speak for her. And I knew I'd been left at that stage. It had no legal standing, but I knew she'd left me as guardian of her sons. Obviously, the other parent being alive, that meant nothing, but it meant something to me. That sort of duty, I think. And then I wrote it in an hour and a half, and yeah, that was it really. I did take one bit out actually, because I did give a rather unnecessary name check to Rupert Murdoch, and I thought, why bother?
no, why give him the publicity?
So revealing that he didn't name Rupert Murdoch in the eulogy, but of course he did make a whole load of political points and points about the media, Brittany. And, Charles Spencer likes to rewrite history a little bit, or at least focus on the history that works for him. So the history that works for him, right, is, oh, well, Diana had asked me to be a guardian of the two boys. But what he never mentions is the fact that Diana hadn't spoken to him for months before her death, because she had begged and pleaded for him to allow her to live or spend time, take a house at Althorpe, and he just wouldn't allow it because of the distraction that it would cause to the property. So she was estranged from her brother at the time of her death.
It's not a surprise. You definitely get echoes of Prince Harry within, Earl Spencer there for sure, because
Yes.
it's just so much of sort of they have to recreate sort of this whole illusion and delusion around Diana to make themselves feel better for some of the decisions that they have made. And Charles Spencer, I think, to his discredit, is still very much living off the memory of his sister, much like his nephew. And so I do find that to be just, of course, very, very problematic. At this point, I don't know what's really, because he said it, I imagine in that interview as well, that he doesn't like it when people come up and tell him where they were when his sister died, which I understand is a little awkward, but it also came across as, how dare you talk to me about that kind of thing. So it definitely, I don't think, sits very well, but again, a reflection of how Diana had this huge impact, and people know if they utilize her memory, that they do get a level of attention for that. And so a lot of people are willing to do it. And I do have so much admiration for Prince William, is that he really doesn't evoke the memory of his mother. He stands on his own 2 feet, and he's trying to create his own legacy. Not that his mother doesn't deeply impact his life. Of course she does, but I feel like he is one of the few who really wants her to rest, wants her memory to rest and be remembered positively, but not people dredging it up every 5 minutes for media attention.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Very well put, Brittany from the Royal News Network. And of course,
And until she figures out who she actually is, beyond the hashtags and PR teams, every reinvention will feel like a rerun. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. Not that Meghan Markle's fallen from grace, but that she keeps trying to climb back up the same ladder, not realizing the world's moved on. So, what do you guys think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you enjoyed this royal deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a drop of royal reality.